What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today I'm coming to you from my basement on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It is an amazing day to honor an amazing person who was an amazing voice for civil change, an amazing voice for workers in his day, and just an amazing human being. And so I thought, what better way to honor the MLK Day and the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. than to read to you guys some of his quotes that maybe you haven't heard before, and maybe give you a little perspective on how Dr. King viewed the world, because he is a hero and his views stand the test of time. Now, before I dive in, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell, drop some comments, share your thoughts, ask your questions, share the video. And without further ado, let's get into it. Now, this is off of the website mlkglobal.org, and I just want to read some of his quotes. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. This was Martin Luther King Jr., 1963. There's not anything that's not more true than that statement, because if you think about it, you've heard the theory of the butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the planet and creating a tsunami on the other side of the planet. Similar thing, you know. We're all part of the same ecosystem. You've heard me talk about that before. So let's move forward. All right. This is on November 23rd, 2017 is when this article was posted. It says, throughout his life, Martin Luther King Jr. spoke often and with vision about the nature of capitalism. The power of his words speak as much to the present day as they did to the turbulent times that he witnessed. So this is from his letter to Coretta Scott in July 18th, 1952. I imagine you already know that I am much more socialistic in my economic theory than capitalistic. Capitalism started out with a noble and high motive, but like most human systems, it fell into the very thing it was revolting against. So today, capitalism has outlived its usefulness. Here's another quote. In a sense, you could say we're involved in the class struggle. That was a quote to the New York Times reporter Jose Iglesias in 1968. Class struggle. Capitalism has outlived its usefulness. That was in 1952. I agree with him, by the way. Here's another one. And one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? Why is that? Why are there so many poor people and homeless people in America if we have such a great system? Why is that? And when you begin to ask that question, you are raising questions about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. And I'm simply saying that more and more, we've got to begin to ask questions about the whole society. This was in a speech to Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Atlanta, Georgia, in August 16th, 1967. Capitalism forgets that life is social, and the kingdom of brotherhood is found neither in the thesis of communism nor the antithesis of capitalism, but in a higher synthesis. This was in another speech to this is actually in the same speech to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, August 16th, 1967. Call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, but there must be a better distribution of wealth within this country for all of God's children. This was in a speech to the Negro American Labor Council in 1961. We must recognize that we can solve our problems now. We must recognize that we can't solve our problem now until there is a radical redistribution of economic and political power. This means a revolution of values and other things. We must see now that the evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism are all tied together. You can't really get rid of one without getting rid of the others. The whole structure of American life must be changed. America is hypocritical. It's a hypocritical nation, and we must put our own house in order. This was in a report to the same Southern Christian Leadership Conference. This was in May of '67. The evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of militarism and the evils of racism. Here's another quote. I am now convinced that the simplest approach will prove to be the most effective. The solution to poverty is to abolish it directly by a now widely discussed matter, the guaranteed income. The curse of poverty has no justification in our age. It is socially as cruel and blind as the practice of cannibalism at the dawn of civilization, when men ate each other because they had not yet learned to take food from the soil or to consume the abundant animal life around them. The time has come for us to civilize ourselves by the total, direct, and immediate abolition of poverty. This is from Where Do We Go From Here, 1967. In a country as rich as this country, there's no excuse for poverty other than cold-blooded heartlessness. It's the only reason for poverty to exist. We live in an exploitative society, and any honest look will reveal the same to you. Here's another quote. You can't talk about solving the economic problems of the Negro without talking about billions of dollars. You can't talk about ending the slums without first saying profit must be taken out of the slums. You're really tampering and getting on dangerous ground because you're messing with folk then. You're messing with captains of industry. Now this means that we are treading in difficult water because it really means that we are saying that something is wrong with capitalism. This was in a speech to his staff in 1966. But when you think about what he said in that speech, that you can't talk about solving the economic problems of the Negro without talking about billions of dollars, is absolutely right. When you talk about the slave trade and you talk about slavery and the hundreds of years of slavery and the amount of wealth that was built on the back of free labor, it's a lot of money owed. And you cannot talk about fixing it until you talk about restitution. And that's honest. That's an honest look. You can't talk about ending the slums without first saying profit must be taken out of the slums. Facts. You've all heard about gentrification and how they come in and buy up the slums and then fix it up and sell it to wealthier folks, and they drive all the folks out of it. That's the profit motive of investing in the slums. You can't talk about that without getting the profit out. And he's right. You're really tampering and getting on dangerous ground because you're talking about captains of industry. Absolutely. The robber barons, the ones that started their fortunes in the 1800s and continued to stack it on and passed it to their children, and they passed it and grew businesses and bought corporations and consolidated and expanded. You're talking about the original captains. So yeah, everything in that statement is facts. All right, let's keep going. We are saying that something is wrong with capitalism. There must be better distribution of wealth, and maybe America must move toward a democratic socialism. That was in the same speech to his staff. If America does not use her vast resources of wealth to end poverty and make it possible for all of God's children to have the basic necessities of life, she too will go to hell. That was a speech at Bishop Charles Mason Temple of the Church of God in Christ in support of the Memphis sanitation workers strike on March 18th, 1968, 2 weeks before he was assassinated. He started talking about the real threat to everyone in this country, which is the economic system. The one that benefits and values the wealthy over any individual and will allow millions to die for the benefit of a few. That's the system he was talking about. And it's as true today as it was then. As true today as it was then. If Jesus were to come back today, he'd get crucified again. If Martin Luther King Jr. came back today and started talking this mess again, he would get assassinated again. The powerful in this country don't want to hear this kind of talk. And that's why they brainwash us into believing it's evil talk. But it's only evil because it upsets the apple cart and makes life a little fairer, which they just don't want. Anyway, that's what I got for you today on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. All right. Y'all remember, the fight's not left and right, it's up and down. And it's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And don't forget, there could be no union without you and I front and center. Peace.